The strong dairy cow was pushed into the cell, and the two staff members immediately turned and ran. It turned out that a terrifying alien giant insect was imprisoned in the cell, with powerful pincers. It dismembered the poor cow in an instant. However, on this planet, such terrifying alien insects are just the lowest form of existence, because there are even more powerful insects here, collectively known as the arachnids by humans. They come from Klendathu, a planet at the edge of the galaxy. They are one of the few intelligent species in the galaxy and the only terrifying existence that can rival humans. The lowest form of these insects is called warrior bugs. They have strong reproductive capabilities and are the most numerous. Their hard exoskeletons have extremely high defense, making it difficult for ordinary weapons to penetrate. Their limbs and mouths are extremely lethal, tearing apart human bodies as easily as cutting vegetables. However, due to their low intelligence, they can only serve as the vanguard in battles. The second type of flying insect is called hoppers. They are the air force of the swarm, capable of flying at speeds up to 341 kilometers per hour. They make good use of their two sharp wings. They dive like eagles and sever human heads, and their front legs can easily grab an adult. The third type is called tankers. They are few in number but exceptionally large in size. Their hard shells also have extremely high defense, similar to tanks in human armies. Normally they like to live in the ground, and in case of war, they will make a surprise attack from underground. Their heads have a pair of antennae that can generate electricity, which can ignite the corrosive liquid they spray from their bodies. Humans who come into contact with it are instantly melted. The fourth type is called plasma bugs. They are the nuclear weapons of the arachnids and the first line of defense against invaders. The blue plasma they spray from their tails is not only powerful but also has a very long range. It can easily fly out of the atmosphere and accurately hit spaceships in outer space. Plasma bugs can be considered the greatest technological threat to humans. Their weakness is that they take too long to charge and have low defense, especially when firing plasma. The last type of insect is called brain bug. It is the smartest existence among the arachnids and the leader of the entire swarm. It is under the leadership of the brain bug that the arachnids can carry out coordinated team efforts in an orderly manner. Its sharp mouthparts can suck human brains and extract knowledge. Its downside is poor mobility and no defensive capabilities. It needs the help of worker bugs to move. Although humans already possess interstellar travel capabilities at this time, the arachnids remain a formidable threat. To expand their territory, the arachnids frequently launch meteors containing insect eggs to attack Earth. Fortunately, with powerful high-tech weapons, humans have managed to turn danger into safety every time, but not always so lucky. To eliminate this potential threat, humans decided to take the initiative and launched a global recruitment to join the Federal Army to defend Earth. This has become the most clear choice for young men and women today. Although Johnny was born into a wealthy family with a future carefully planned by his parents, his dream was to join the army and contribute to Earth's defense. Even if it meant falling out with his parents, he would not compromise. Johnny's good friend Carl and girlfriend Carmen shared the same desire. Carmen's dream was to become a pilot and command a 50-ton starship. The recruitment day arrived soon, but due to their differing scores, they were assigned to different departments. With excellent grades, Carmen fulfilled her wish to become a pilot. Carl, who had the best grades, was assigned to military intelligence. Johnny, with the lowest scores, was naturally sent to the most dangerous mobile infantry, which meant he had to part temporarily from his beloved girlfriend. The new recruits faced strict training upon arrival at the camp. The instructor was hot-tempered and would punish soldiers at the slightest disagreement. One soldier, feeling defiant, challenged the instructor, but the instructor demonstrated his absolute strength by breaking the soldier's arm. Fortunately, medical technology was very advanced. At this time, a new recruit named Dizzy arrived, her eyes full of affection as she looked at Johnny in the lineup. It turned out she was also Johnny's schoolmate and admirer. To be close to Johnny, the high-achieving Dizzy had specifically requested a transfer to the dangerous mobile infantry. However, the instructor deemed Dizzy unfit, as the mobile infantry did not accommodate the weak. No sooner had the instructor spoken than Dizzy took off her shirt, ready to challenge him on the spot. Although Dizzy did not defeat the instructor, her courage to challenge earned his respect. In the following days of training, everyone gave their all to become the top soldier in the unit. Johnny, with his outstanding performance, was elected squad leader. However, when he planned to share this good news with his girlfriend light years away, Carmen delivered bad news first. Carmen wanted to focus entirely on her career, aiming to become a captain. With no time for a relationship, she decided to break up with Johnny. Johnny was momentarily speechless, and Carmen ended the video call abruptly. The main reason for Carmen's sudden decision was actually the starship pilot, Xander. By this time, Carmen had earned her place as a co-pilot through her efforts, and she gradually developed feelings for Xander. Johnny had anticipated this outcome, but he didn't expect it to happen so quickly. Dizzy was so happy to see this. However, during a live-fire exercise, Carmen caused a fatal accident by removing a teammate's helmet, leading to the teammate being shot in the head and dying instantly. The female teammate who fired the shot was held primarily responsible and was expelled from the unit and sent back to Earth that same day. Although Johnny was only trying to help repair the helmet, as squad leader, he could not escape responsibility. He was not only stripped of his squad leader position but also publicly flogged in front of everyone. These successive setbacks were a huge blow to Johnny, making him doubt whether he could ever become a competent soldier. He decided to leave the army. His parents, of course, were very supportive of his decision, but just as they were having a video call, the signal was mysteriously cut off. Without giving it much thought, Johnny packed his bag and prepared to leave. Upon reaching the central square, Johnny saw the soldiers suddenly in a state of agitation. After asking around, he learned that war was about to begin. It turns out that just now the insect race attacked the Earth again, but this time the human race failed to block the meteorite, causing more than 1 million people to die in the attack. The city hit by the meteor was none other than Johnny and Dizzy's hometown. Now, even home was gone. With nothing left, Johnny decisively reapplied to join the army, as the Marshal of the Earth Federation declared war on the arachnids in front of the whole world. The human fleet set off grandly towards the arachnid home planet, Klendathu. On the way, Johnny encountered Carmen on the starship after a long separation, while they were catching up with each other. Xander also came here, and Johnny seemed to understand something when he learned that he was Carmen's superior. Johnny intended to walk away, but Xander's constant taunting finally made him snap, and he punched Xander hard. Neither of them gained the upper hand as the surrounding soldiers quickly intervened to separate them. Soon, the starship, with its faster-than-light travel, arrived above the arachnid planet. The troops were brimming with confidence about the upcoming battle. The soldiers, filled with adrenaline, believed the arachnids were no big deal and couldn't wait to engage them in combat. The mobile infantry immediately boarded the landing ships. The captain then issued the order. Their mission was simple: eliminate anything with more than 2 legs. However, no one knew that this mission would be a one-way trip to hell. Shortly after the landing craft left, the main ship detected a large amount of unidentified energy incoming. This was the plasma fired by the plasma bugs. The Captain Deladier, however, reassured everyone not to panic, citing intelligence that the plasma's power wasn't very strong. But the next second, an unexpected attack struck. A warship was hit directly by the plasma and exploded instantly. The Captain Deladier immediately realized the intelligence was wrong. They then watched helplessly as another warship was hit on the flank and veered out of control, crashing into a nearby ship. Thanks to Carmen and Xander's excellent piloting skills, their ship narrowly avoided disaster. Meanwhile, the landing craft descending to the surface also came under plasma attack. Clearly, humanity had grossly underestimated the arachnids' combat capabilities. To prevent the fleet's total annihilation, the mobile infantry's primary mission was to eliminate the plasma bugs. They saw from a distance 2 massive plasma bugs adjusting their positions to fire their devastating plasma cannons. The captain quickly ordered the use of small nuclear bombs for the attack. As the 2 plasma bugs prepared to fire again, 2 nuclear bombs were launched. After taking out the targets, the mobile infantry continued their advance. Suddenly, a group of warrior bugs appeared, ignoring the bullets and dismembering the captain. Dozens of soldiers frantically fired at the warrior bugs, finally killing them. Looking up, they saw more warrior bugs approaching, causing them to panic. After all, it had been so difficult to kill just one, and now there were many more, making victory seem impossible. It wasn't until Johnny shouted for them to open fire that they reacted and unleashed their full firepower. But the bullets seemed ineffective. One soldier, disregarding the danger, charged at the warrior bugs head-on, only to be torn to pieces by the swarm. This scene terrified everyone. They never expected the bugs to be so formidable. They had come to this planet to exterminate the bugs, but now they were being slaughtered. At this point, the mobile infantry had only one goal: to escape this planet with their lives. The journalist on the scene was very dedicated. However, he hadn't anticipated broadcasting a massacre of humans by alien bugs instead of showing Earth's people how humans were defeating the arachnids. Even when he was caught by the pursuing warrior bugs, The journalist didn't let go of his microphone, and the cameraman calmly recorded his brutal death, until the cameraman himself was impaled by a warrior bug. Johnny, firing continuously, didn't know how many bullets it took to finally kill a warrior bug, but just as Johnny let his guard down, he was stabbed in the thigh by a warrior bug that wasn't dead yet and fell to the ground, alive or dead. Underestimating the arachnid's combat power, this battle cost humanity dearly, with the loss of 100,000 soldiers in just 1 hour. The marshal who initially declared war on the arachnids was removed from his position and replaced by a new female marshal. Learning from the last battle, the new marshal immediately announced a new strategy. Knowing oneself and the enemy is the key to victory. Soon the battered and broken battleships returned to the base. The base was filled with wounded soldiers, and the death toll had soared to an astounding 300,000. Carmen, worried about Johnny's safety, searched for his name and was devastated to find him listed among the casualties. In reality, Johnny was not dead. He was saved by an experienced captain and is currently in the medical bay, receiving treatment for his injured leg. Ace and Dizzy found Johnny and even showed him his own death notice. As they were leaving, Dizzy once again expressed her love for Johnny. 3 days later, Johnny fully recovered and was assigned to a new unit. The Roughnecks were the elite of the mobile infantry, and their captain, Gene, was the best of the best. It was he who had saved Johnny from the brink of death. Soon, the war between humans and arachnids resumed, but this time, under the new marshal's leadership, the human strategy had changed. They first used fighter jets to carpet bomb the ground. Once the number of warrior bugs had dwindled significantly, the mobile infantry landed to mop up the remnants. With Gene's command, the team members began to move out in different directions. Their mission was to locate the arachnid nests and destroy them. Johnny and his team quickly discovered a cave, just as several warrior bugs emerged from it. Without hesitation, Johnny loaded a nuclear bomb and fired it into the cave. But no sooner had they destroyed the cave than they heard over the radio that some teammates were in trouble. Engaged in a fierce battle with a few warrior bugs, Johnny's team quickly went to provide support. Under the intense firepower, the remaining bugs were soon driven to the brink of defeat. However, just then, a massive creature burst from the ground. It was a tanker launching a surprise attack from below. Facing a tanker head-on was futile. The only option was to flee. One teammate was a step too slow and had his right arm incapacitated by the tanker's corrosive high-temperature liquid. Gene arrived just in time to save his life. Quick-thinking Johnny climbed to a high point and leaped onto the tanker's back, then started shooting wildly at the tanker's body. No matter how tough the tanker's back was, it couldn't withstand the relentless barrage of bullets. Soon, a large hole formed in the tanker's back. The tanker, in pain, tried to shake Johnny off, but at the last moment, Johnny threw a grenade into the tanker's body. The violent explosion from within dealt the tanker a fatal blow. Johnny's performance was praised by Gene, who promoted Johnny from private to corporal on the spot. For the first time, humanity had achieved a victory against the arachnids. That night, they held a lively celebration. During the party, Johnny and Dizzy finally confirmed their relationship. However, just as they entered the tent to get intimate, Gene interrupted them. It turned out that an important base had been attacked by the arachnids. At dawn, the Roughnecks set out for the base, unaware that they were heading into a near-fatal battle. Before they reached their destination, a sudden hoppers attack carried off their communications officer. Seeing this, Gene knew the officer was doomed, so he picked up a sniper rifle and ended his suffering.
I'd expect anyone in this unit to do the same for me.
The squad pressed forward and soon reached the base. However, they were too late. The base had already fallen, with the remains of soldiers scattered everywhere. The arachnids had vanished, leaving only a tunnel in the command room. It was evident that the tankers had launched a surprise attack from underground. Additionally, they found a strange corpse with a hole in its head and its brains completely drained by some unknown insect. Even Gene had never encountered such a situation. Suddenly, a noise came from a nearby cabinet. It turned out to be General Owen, who was hiding. Although the general was scared, he still told them an important message. He revealed that the arachnids had a large brain-sucking bug that could control humans, making them do anything, including sending distress signals. Hearing this, Johnny is the first to realize that the so-called distress signal is actually a trap set by the bugs. It became clear that the arachnids were not mindlessly attacking. However, as they prepared to leave, it was already too late. A massive number of warrior bugs were approaching, enough to make anyone's skin crawl. Gene quickly organized the team for battle, ordering everyone to open fire as soon as the bugs were within range. But the warrior bugs were too many and soon overwhelmed the defenses. Worse still, the sky was filled with hoppers. whose bodies were deadly weapons. Even their wings could easily decapitate humans. Johnny managed to take down a hopper, but its falling body killed General Owen below. Gene knew the base would eventually fall at this rate, so he urgently told Johnny to call for an evacuation. By now, the warrior bugs had begun attacking the fortifications, using the bodies of fallen comrades as stepping stones. Soon, one warrior bug breached the defenses, followed closely by several more. Gene, just reloading his ammo, turned to find even more warrior bugs joining the fray. It was clear the arachnids were determined to take this base. Knowing that the rescue ship was on its way, Gene hurriedly ordered everyone to retreat. A soldier, just a step too slow, was impaled by an advancing warrior bug. Soon, a large number of warrior bugs scaled the high walls, and the soldiers were running out of ammunition. In the nick of time, the rescue ship finally arrived, but as the soldiers were about to board, the ground suddenly began to shake violently. Caught off guard, Gene fell into the pit, where a terrifying creature from below was attacking him. By the time Johnny and Dizzy pulled Gene out, his legs were gone. At Gene's pleading, Johnny tearfully ended his suffering. It turned out that the creature in the ground was a tanker. Dizzy quickly pulled the pin on a grenade and, just as the tanker was about to attack, she accurately threw it into its mouth. Surprisingly, she took down the tanker with ease, but before Dizzy could celebrate, a charging warrior bug impaled her. The team concentrated their fire to rescue Dizzy and hurriedly carried her onto the rescue ship. They managed to escape just before the base was completely overrun. However, Dizzy's injuries were too severe, and she ultimately died in Johnny's arms. Angry and heartbroken, Johnny went to the cockpit and asked the pilot to notify the fleet to bomb the planet. To his surprise, Xander and Carmen were in the cockpit. Carmen was equally shocked to see that Johnny was still alive. Xander immediately relayed Johnny's request to the higher-ups, but the captain did not approve it because the marshal had other plans. The fleet then held a solemn funeral for Dizzy. At this moment, a familiar figure walked in. To Johnny's surprise, it was Carl. By now, Carl had been promoted to lieutenant colonel and was Johnny's direct superior. The combat mission this time was also ordered by him. It turned out they had long known that the arachnids had set a trap. The purpose of sending the Roughnecks to certain death was to locate the arachnid's brain bug. Only by capturing the brain bug and studying it could the war between humans and arachnids come to an end. Now, they had pinpointed the brain bug's general location, and the next mission was to capture it alive. Before leaving, Carl appointed Johnny as the new leader of the Roughnecks. Soon, Johnny led the Roughnecks back to the arachnid planet. The team also welcomed a batch of outstanding new members, but just as Johnny issued the mission to search for the brain bug, the plasma bugs launched a preemptive attack. It seemed that the arachnid brain bug had already sensed the threat. The dense plasma has once again dealt a severe blow to the fleet in outer space, destroying countless battleships. And this time even Carmen's battleship was not spared and was directly blown in half. Captain Deladier had no choice but to abandon the ship to save her life, but she was crushed to death by a falling steel door. Luckily, Xander and Carmen managed to get into an escape pod before the ship exploded. Only then did Johnny receive the news that Carmen's ship had been destroyed. Looking up, they saw an escape pod streak across the sky and crash into a mountain cave. Inside the escape pod were Carmen and Xander. At that moment, they were unaware that they had entered the arachnid's nest. Carmen quickly used the radio to call Johnny and relay their location, but no sooner had she spoken than several warrior bugs closed in on them. Xander and Carmen immediately took up arms and began to fight back. However, it wasn't long before Xander was knocked to the ground by a warrior bug, its sharp claw piercing his thigh. Carmen, trying to save Xander, was also impaled through the shoulder by another warrior bug. Strangely, the warrior bugs did not kill them immediately but instead restrained their movements. While Xander and Carmen were wondering, countless worker bugs appeared from inside the cave, and then all the warrior bugs retreated to the side. A bloated insect then appeared before them. It was the brain bug, the leader of the arachnids. As the brain bug approached, Xander realized his fate. Before dying, he vowed that humanity would win the war. In response to Xander's taunts, the brain bug did not hesitate and plunged its sharp mouthpart into Xander's head, sucking out his brain. Just as it was Carmen's turn, Johnny arrived with a nuclear bomb. The smart brain bug knew the destructive power of the device and didn't dare to act rashly, allowing Carmen to be rescued. Protected by the warrior bugs, the brain bug slowly retreated into the cave. Seeing that the leader had left safely, warrior bugs also started to attack Johnny and the others. They had to fight and retreat, taking down one warrior bug after another, but in the face of overwhelming numbers, one of the soldiers was quickly knocked down. Johnny tried to pull him to safety, but the teammate took the nuclear bomb, intending to sacrifice himself to take out the bugs. Before they could leave the cave, a massive explosion erupted behind them. Fortunately, they all emerged unscathed. When they came out of the cave, they saw all the soldiers cheering. It turned out that they had successfully captured the brain bug from the other side. This battle ended in a victory for humanity. However, the war with the arachnids was far from over, as their forces were spread throughout the galaxy. But with the brain bug captured, Carl was confident they could find the arachnids' weaknesses, giving humans the upper hand in the ongoing war.